All right, welcome. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Randy Crum, so I run the DFW DataViz Meetup group. If you're not a member, this is the first time you've come to one of our DataViz Meetup events? About half? That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. If you joined the group, you probably did if you registered for tonight's event, but if you joined the group at this bit.ly link right here, you'll get emails every time we schedule new events, and you can just pick and choose which ones you want to come out to. I'll give you a quick intro to me. My company is called InfoNewt. We do data visual designs for clients all over the world. Both the online marketing infographics you see and a whole bunch of our work is under NDA with proprietary confidential data helping people do better presentations, reports, white papers, data viz, that type of thing. My website is Cool Infographics, and conveniently it's what I named my book as well, Cool Infographics. And I run this meetup group, and this meetup group meets monthly on a really wide variety of data viz topics. So we've done sketchnoting and visual note-taking, marketing and how to publish infographics online as part of visual content marketing. We also do tools and how to do better presentation and better charts in presentations like PowerPoint tools. And then we really get on the deep end and start doing R and D3 visualizations and talks about that. And so it's a really wide gamut, and you can sort of pick and choose which ones interest you. And I also teach a class over at SMU about data visualization. If you have any interest in the book, you can download the first chapter for free on the Cool Infographics website. I'll just put that out there. I want to thank SMU. We generally do our events at SMU here in Plano or SMU in Dallas. They give us location to meet up for free, which keeps it all free for all of us, and we love that. So thank you, SMU, and my company. We are always looking for additional sponsors. There are a ton of great speakers and authors that would love to come here if we could pay to get them here. But since it's a free group, we don't have a budget to do that. So if your company or if you know of somebody who might be interested in sponsoring a future event and helping us out, I have a general sponsor sheet that you're welcome to take a copy of that gives you a general idea of like what you get if you sponsor and some general price tags. But we can do something custom for anybody who wants to help support us. We'll figure it out because we would love to bring some of the other data viz authors and designers that want to come in and talk. A number of our past events are on YouTube. That's what we're sort of doing here. It's up to me to actually edit them and put them up there. I'm about 4 or 5 months behind, but I do have some taped events that we'll put up there. And you can see some of the past speakers that we've had here. Upcoming events. I have already posted, which is sort of unusual, our upcoming December event. If anybody here deal with SEO, online marketing, digital analytics, any of that sort of stuff, familiar with Majestic SEO? They have designed this 3-dimensional data visualization map of the entire internet. And not only did they design this and come up with this and do this massive scrape of the internet to come up with it, but they're having it 3D printed on the International Space Station. And so there's a printer that got sent up there, and they sent the data up there, and it hasn't made it back down yet, but they're going to come talk about the visualization, the data they gathered, and then the whole process of working with NASA and actually getting it done on the International Space Station, how they get it back to Earth. So Dixon Jones is going to come. That's going to be Monday, December 5th. The event is already on the meetup site, so you're welcome to register. I know once the word gets out, especially to the SEO community, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that want to come. And this event is going to be a little bit different because we're going to hold it at the Dallas Entrepreneur Center in downtown Dallas. They've got space that'll hold about 150 people and a stage that we can work with, and they owe me a big favor. And so we're going to use their space for the December event. So you can register now. It's going to be great. It's going to be big. And we're going to have some additional, like this is just me bringing refreshments, but like Pabst Blue Ribbon's going to bring some beer and some other stuff for this event in December. So we'll sort of call it our December holiday event as well. But that's coming up in December, and you can already register for it now. Beth, you want to mention your Divergence Academy?
Okay. Can I come up there?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all...
If you stand over here, you'll be in front of the camera.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
I wanted to say thank you to the group because I was the one that sent out the notice last week that we were going to offer up to 10 people to come take our Data Science for Managers course. And we had some people take us up on it, so will you raise your hand if you came? Because there's plenty of you in here. And does anyone want to share what they learned or if they were surprised at how easy it is to do data science? Either one?
Easy is a relative term.
Exactly. How easy can it really be?
It definitely was a great introductory lesson to get started and have better understanding. And the goal was to make managers more conversational with the people that can do the work, and then to start that entry, decide if that's something we'd like to get further into. Now we know how we can go about doing that.
Okay, great. Well, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, that was certainly more content than I expected, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it gave me a better understanding of my own personal roadmap of where I want to go and how I want to go about doing it. So I found it very useful, and it was a great day.
Okay, great. Well, so Divergence Academy, we have courses for managers all the way to super technical. So wherever you are on the spectrum of data science and wanting to learn all the underlying things that go beneath the pretty visualizations, we've got some great courses. So I urge you to check out Divergence Academy. We're approved by the Texas Workforce Commission. We're located in Addison, and we're hands-on. We also have mentoring programs. So you're welcome to talk to me after if you'd like.
And Beth, are they all in-person classes? None
Everything's
of them are online?
in person.
Everything's in
Yep.
person here in the Dallas area.
Yep.
Yeah, we sent out that email. It was like 4 minutes. Those
Yeah,
positions
yeah.
filled up like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know a number of people were trying to get in, they couldn't. Okay, so quick drawing. Anybody else want to add your business card to win a free ebook? Anybody? Last chance. John, you want to pick one? Anybody in the back?
I think he's.
If you want to, raise your hand high and proud. Anybody want to draw? Nobody?
I can pick one.
John Ringhofer.
You sure?
I'm presenting.
Okay. All right.
You picked Alex. Of course
Yep.
you did.
It's just the look of the drawing.
You know the feel of that card. It's just.
Okay. The winner is Kevin Arnold.
That's me.
Kevin.
Very good.
All right, congratulations. URL, it'll let you pick which one you want and download the PDF of the ebook.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Today, right, we have John. If anyone want to stand up?
Sure.
John Ringhofer is going to be here from Microsoft. Going to show us fabulous Microsoft stuff. I found John at the DAMA, the Digital...
North Texas Data Management Association.
Yeah, they did. Anybody here members of the DAMA? A couple. Anybody see him talk over at that group? Do you guys see it? You're gonna see it. You can see the same stuff. You can do a lot more in depth today. But John, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then let's switch over the connection here.
So John Ringhofer, I'm a technical solutions professional with Microsoft in the data platform area. We work with SMSMD, which means small and medium solution partners. And basically, I just started with Microsoft back on May 23rd, but I have about 30 years of IT experience. Most recently, I was at a BI company before Microsoft. Before that, I was at a big data company, Cloudera, before that, over 2 years. And before that, I was with a columnar database company. Before that, I was with IBM Netezza. And before that, I was with IBM Informix. So when I interviewed with Microsoft, they said, "You work for all our competitors, John." Yeah. So, and I'd also like to introduce Alex Barbeau. He's a BI consultant with GNET Group, and he's helped us at quite a number of accounts with Power BI, which is our subject tonight. So Alex is here to help me with some questions at the end, the demo. We're going to have a high-level demo at the end, and feel free to ask both of us questions at the end. And I forgot to mention, GNET Group is headquartered in Minnesota, but of course, like he said, they have an office here in Dallas. And I cover South Central and Gulf Coast.
Want to be in Minnesota?
Yeah.
It's the right time to come down.
Right. So GNET helps me out here in the South Central District. Did you want to add anything else? Yeah.
I think that's
Make sure you
all.
turn on and connect.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction, John. So yeah,
Sure.
working with Power BI and other data platforms are in the Microsoft area as
Right.
well.
Okay, great. Is anybody familiar with what when I say Microsoft Data Platform Group or area, do you know what I'm talking about? So Microsoft Data Platform Solutions cover SQL Server 2016, all the SQL Server editions. It covers Power BI, of course, and it covers the Cortana Intelligence Suite. And there's a whole bucket of solutions in the Cortana Intelligence Suite as well. So make sure I render this correctly. So how many of you are Power BI customers? How many of you currently use Power BI? Okay. And how many of you have heard of Power BI? Okay, so everybody good. So, you know, Power BI, relatively speaking, hasn't been out that long, right? It's been out since, I know it first became generally available like June, July of last year, right? And before that, it might have been in technical preview, et cetera. So most of the people that I've talked to and shown some of these high-level demos are pretty amazed, and they say, "Wow, it's come pretty far in a relatively short period of time." So as you can see here, the subject is an overview of Power BI, but it also encompasses Active Directory and security, because of course most production environments want to be very secure and compliant and have either, especially if you have data from North America, Europe, et cetera, right? A lot of times you say, hey, I need data not to be commingled, and make sure that all our users are authorized and authenticated correctly, right? So with that, I'll just dive right into it. So basically, how many of you have seen Power BI visuals before? Okay. So pretty straightforward, right? You get the trends out of the box. You can see it in a map or a tree map or different text and numbers, etc. By the way, I do want to say that Power BI did not have anything to do with predicting the election results. Okay, so right there at some brownie points right out there. So Microsoft Business Intelligence, trusted platform. So as you can see on the left-hand side, I know that's a bit of an eye chart, but Gartner recognizes us in the top right quadrant as a leader in business intelligence, and in fact, we've accelerated the number of enhancements that we've provided in Power BI, and again, not just in the visualization aspects, but in the number of data sources that we can consume from, as well as I was saying before, the authentication, the authorization, and the whole perimeter security issue with Power BI. In the center box, of course, it's powerful self-service analytics, right? The idea is that once you set it up, once you get that automatic connectivity to your data source, then you can refresh that instantly, right? If you're a Power BI free user, you can do that on a daily basis. If you're a Power BI Pro user, you can even refresh as often as hourly. And you can do, like it says here, at a fraction of the cost. How many have heard of Power BI Embedded? Nobody? Okay, I know you have.
I'll assume my hand is always going to be
your
ready.
hand's always going to go
Yeah.
up. Well, anyway, Power BI Embedded is where, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, where you can actually create an embed code and insert it inside your website or blog, and you can have interactive visuals within the website or blog. So it's an automated solution for providing that, right? Because you don't have to have a developer for everything. And of course, faster insights. 5 seconds to get started, 5 minutes to wow. I love how the marketing department overpromises here, but yeah. So anyway, experiencing your data, right? Any day, any way, anywhere. So that actually is coming more and more to fulfillment as we enhance Power BI, because there's more of a mobile capability. And we'll see this a little bit in the demo I'll show later. But the idea is that, right, you don't want to have to be tied to your desk, logged into your BI tool all day long, right? You want to be able to take it where you're going with you and get alerted, so that the thresholds or whatever parameters you set say, hey, I need to be alerted. I need to know exactly when these ceilings have been or about to be surpassed, or maybe it's a revenue or marketing lead parameter, right? And you want to be proactive and know, hey, this is about to go below a critical threshold and I need to be proactive. And that way, you're spending more time running your business, not being looking at your BI tool all day long. And so we have over 200,000 organizations in 200 countries with over 5 million subscribers currently with Power BI. And as you can see, it's multiple data sources, right? It's not just the Microsoft Cloud, which is critically important, but also non-Microsoft Cloud sources as well. And then, of course, we work with on-premise data, so you can get to data sources like Oracle, SAP, SQL Server, of course, and of course, even some of the big data sources like Hadoop. How many of you are using Hadoop right now? Any Hadoop back there? Okay, you mind saying what flavor of Hadoop?
Cloudera?
Cloudera? Okay, makes sense. And then, of course, there's intelligence, no matter what data source you're coming from, right? We can give you the stream analytics, the machine learning, statistical analysis, and intelligent apps. So, remember I said one of the products in Microsoft Data Platform I support is the Cortana Intelligence Suite. So, we have our own Hadoop distribution, right, called HD Insights. So you can actually have Power BI consume from HD Insights. In the Cortana Intelligence Suite, we have Azure Data Lake, right? The idea there is to get the data out of the silos and into a data lake, as they call it, or as Cloudera would call it, an enterprise data hub. And that way you can, you have that holistic view of your data, right? You'll see the outliers that your competition is not seeing. And of course, we have something called Azure Machine Learning, so you can actually have Power BI consume the intelligent analytics coming out of machine learning. Live dashboards and reports. So this is pretty self-explanatory, but providing a 360-degree view of your business. Well, who doesn't want a 360-degree view of their business, right? The idea is that it's often hard to attain that when you have data in those different silos, right? You have connectivity or integration issues, then you have performance issues, right? Trying to integrate or bring that data all together. And so Power BI does that in a performant and scalable way. Like I said, with Power BI Pro, we have these optimized connectors called content packs. And the old joke there is, what is a content pack? Well, it's a pack of content, right? But the content it's a pack of dashboards or reports that can be provided instantly, right? Optimized access to those data sources, to those dashboards and reports. So it might be relevant to, you got to know what audience it's relevant to, right? So those dashboards and reports can be relevant to a release manager or a chief marketing officer or anybody in between, right? And you say, why should I have to worry about downloading the right ODBC connector and worrying about what port and what firewall did I, unlock the firewall? These optimized connectors are provided out of the box, right? And then you can actually build these content packs for your organization. And then, depending if you want to allow those content packs to be available for the whole organization or just specific groups of people, you can make those available. And again, obviously it's not just to Microsoft data sources, right? You can have those content packs giving you direct access to other services like Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics or, Oracle or Cloudera, for example. We also enable drill down to the other underlying reports, so that's obviously something that's important if you have like maps, for example, and you say, well, I want to have a region, but then I want to be able to view this initially at a regional basis across different continents, but then I want to enable drill down to the country level or to the state level or to the local level. And so you can put different entities on your axis so that you can drill down and get different views of your data. And you can pin those visualizations and the key performance indicators to the dashboards and reports, and then monitor performance as well. And as Alex was telling me earlier, right, you can actually, once you get that view, you can actually say, okay, this is the view I want, but let me filter it even further to hone in on exactly the kind of view that I want or the particular aspect that's relevant for my organization. Now for mobile apps, of course, we cover all the different Windows devices, right, but we also support Android and iPad and iPhone. You can receive alerts, of course, to that important changes in your data, or as I said earlier, if certain thresholds are violated, either on the upside or the downside. And we've really increased in Power BI the collaboration capability with Power BI, so that have you guys used like either SQL Server reporting services, right? You mentioned that earlier, or analysis services? Use analysis services? Okay. So obviously, what's happened over the last year and a half or so is that Microsoft has integrated more of in the Power BI ecosystem, right? The ability to use SQL Server reporting services. And about a little over a year and a half ago, we bought a company called DataZen. so that it could do these mobile and these paginated reports, right? So we're kind of getting rid of the DataZen name, and I'll show that later where it kind of fits into the ecosystem. So you can pretty much get started quickly with Power BI. There's these pre-built solutions and pre-built dashboards and models that are available out of the box as SaaS, right? Software as a service. Or you can build them, like I said, for your organization. And these are just a few of the examples that we provide out of the box access to. And we'll show that, the navigation bar in the demo. Now, obviously, we're enabling you to experience your data in new ways, as it says here, with Cortana, right? You can actually ask it questions, and that's in our Q&A feature. We can actually use natural language processing, so you don't really have to write an SQL query, so to speak, but you can just ask questions of your data naturally. Again, you have that Cortana intelligence to access it from Windows 10, and then you can auto-discover patterns and insights in your data instantly, just with these out-of-the-box dashboards and reports. And we do offer a gallery, by the way. You'll probably see, you will see when I bring up the demo that there's this palette of different, visuals, and of course it's the standard ones, right? Donuts or pie charts or column charts, whether they're horizontal and vertical, and integrating columns and line charts. But we have a whole gallery of thousands of different visuals. So if we don't have something that's right for your business, you can go to that gallery and say, hey, I need these other 2 visuals that are perfect, right? We didn't want to mess up the user experience by putting them all there, right? That's why we have this gallery that you can actually bring those extra visuals into the dashboard. So this just shows the actual natural language query capability, type a question, and Power BI gives you the answer. And you can actually not only ask it the question, but then you can save it as a different visual, whether that's a tree map or something else. Now, we integrate with Office 365. How many Office 365 users are there? Okay, quite a few. Great. I expected you to be one, Randy.
Well, I'm proud.
Okay, great. And so you can do that collaboration through Office 365 groups. Of course, there's Sharepoint integration as well. And Microsoft is actually enhancing the integration with Sharepoint as well. So right now, for example, I can upload certain Excel workbooks to SharePoint, and then I can just tell Power BI, hey, go get that, attach, connect to that workbook. And then, of course, you can upload different versions of that worksheet on as frequent a basis as you need to. You can pin live charts to your Power BI dashboard. And again, in the demo, you'll see how Power BI and Excel work better together. That's kind of the theme of the demo, is since Excel is pretty prevalent out there, a lot of people want to know how they work together and how you can do it in a most optimal way. Of course, you may say, well, I have these other databases that I need to connect to. So that's not going to be part of the demo, but again, it's very straightforward to connect to those data sources. Now, self-service analysis. Not only do we have the Power BI service, right, which you log into and you're authenticated to, and you actually see, oh, I've got this menu for Office 365 and its components, but I've got a navigation bar that gets me to dashboards, reports, and of course data sources. But we have Power BI Desktop on the client end, right? So you can actually do this visual drag and drop capability that you would want to do, right? So usually I often say this, and it's not over-promising, right, is that a lot of organizations have Excel analysts, and those analysts who are savvy in Excel love Power Pivot. Well, they're going to love Power BI Desktop as well, because it provides a lot of the same look and feel that they're used to in Excel, but of course with enhanced capabilities. And so we give you that free-form canvas, as it says on the bottom there, so that you can do more interactive reporting, create those interactive reports, and then share them with others. And by the way, a lot of people ask me, well, like I've had CIOs ask me, well, hey, I've seen in the Power BI service, I uploaded this, and I created this dashboard, and now I see, oh, I can export to CSV. That totally violates our security mantra, right? And I'm like, okay, did you know that we have an admin portal? And you can actually turn that feature off, right? So there's no reason to panic about certain things that you might see on the initial perusal of the Power BI service, because we have all those kind of admin capabilities. Right, so connecting to all your data around you, right? Connecting, we have those connectors out of the box to give you a broad range of connectivity, both to the on-premise and to the cloud. And actually, I've already described the Power BI service. I've described Power BI Desktop. The third component that you should be aware of is the Power BI Gateway, right? We have an enterprise gateway that's for on-premise data, right? So that can take your data from on-prem up into the cloud. And that's basically just to optimize that. And of course, you can configure that appropriately as right. Well, you can say everybody in my organization gets to use that, or maybe I create a group and only certain people have access to that. You can join and model data from multiple data sources, and you can extend your analysis and support for technologies such as R. And I think a lot of you are familiar with the R server, right? Open source R and Microsoft R server. Okay, some of you are?
John, can we
Go
ask
ahead.
questions along the way?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You mentioned basically moving my on-prem data to the cloud.
Mhm.
Do I have to do that to do the visualization, or can I'll leave part of it on-prem?
You can
part of
leave,
it- okay.
yeah, you can leave part of it on-prem. That's no problem. Now, that brings up a good point. Not only can you do that, but a lot of times in the big data arena, right, they're like, well, hey, I don't want to have to bring back half a petabyte of data to my client, right? Well, you won't have to. We have something called direct query, where Power BI just goes out to the data source. It does all its analytics out there, right, where it has the horsepower, and then it brings back the appropriate aggregates and analytics. So it does what makes sense. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, on the Power BI desktop versus the admin portal, so I'm assuming the admin portal is just for an enterprise wide application. I mean, does it tie to the Power BI desktop version as well?
I don't think the admin portal ties to the desktop, right?
No, not
Yeah.
direct. There's nothing direct.
Yeah, right.
So so if a user has just the desktop, and if they want to show their reports across the enterprise, how would they do it? Is it
If they want to share the reports across the enterprise, well, they can create groups, right? And they can say, I want either everybody or just certain people, right? In my marketing organization, I just want my marketing organization to see these groups of dashboards and reports. And then, of course, you just grant access, right? Because there's somebody who's the admin, right? And he can grant admin access to other people, right? But the point is, you're only going to grant access for people in that group that will have access to that set of dashboards and reports. And of course, if you have another set of dashboards and reports for a different group of people, then you can create another group. Does that answer your question?
So the groups are in the SharePoint or somewhere else?
Well, you can create groups in SharePoint, but I was talking about within the Power BI service. You can create groups, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We were just finishing up with an implementation for a client where they've got two different models, two different groups. And so using a combination of workspaces, group workspaces is what they're called.
That's right. Yeah, workspaces.
Power BI, and then
Right.
content packs, getting the sharing to work there. And they're also using the load data, import data from the gateway.
And is that from Active Directory, like pulling those rights from Active Directory, or are you actually creating all that in Power BI?
Well, they have to authenticate through Active Directory,
Yeah,
right?
So
you're
it's-
going to AD, you're creating
it's
them
much-
in AD?
So it's much easier if you have full AD integration.
Yeah,
This
okay.
one has partial, so we're running into some hoops with there.
Okay.
We've made it work, and they're moving there, but it becomes just very simple as soon as you have full AD.
What do you use as the authentication at that point? Or do you-
ADFS with an Azure
Okay.
AD,
Yeah.
tied to your local domain controller.
So it pulls all a group out of AD, all different groups.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. That's not only ADFS, but if we had one customer that asked us about, hey, we have all this sensitive data. They're in financial services, right? So they have like property data as well as insurance data, and they're like, we're working with the European Union, so we got to make sure that North American users don't have access to this European data, right? Well, the answer to that, after I investigated, was Azure Active Directory conditional access. So you can actually have different tenants, right? Not to make this overly complex, but you can have different tenants.
It's gonna get geeky.
Right, yeah. But you can have different tenants. You guys know what a tenant is?
Sure,
Yeah, so you can have a different tenant like that's a big term in the big data industry, right? You can have multi-tenancy in a big data cluster, right? You could say this tenant, this organization is going to have access to this cluster, or this other organization to have access to this cluster. Or you can have two organizations share access to the same cluster. So that's multi-tenancy. Well, in this case with Power BI, they each have their own tenant, right? And you can say, well, this organization is charged back this much based on either number of users or amount of resources, et cetera. So that's basically it, right? Yep.
So till now, like you mentioned about everything in cloud, right? That's Microsoft.
For the Power BI service, yeah.
Do they have any on-premise solution, like and stuff on the cloud?
On-prem would be Power BI desktop.
Should I just come up at this point?
Yeah, if you want. Sure. Here's Alex.
So
Perfect.
you use the word Power BI Desktop. Is that an app locally, or is that
No.
still a web-based interface?
No, Power BI desktop is not a web-based interface. It's
Okay.
it's an actual client product of Power BI.
Yeah.
So
I can just talk here, I guess.
yeah, there you go.
All right. So I believe, could you repeat the question?
No, so till now, like you have been throughout the presentation, like you talked about like, BI in the cloud, right?
Mhm.
BI in the cloud. So I was looking for, do you have any solutions which is on premise? I know a lot of clients like who are web sensitive information who don't like to put their data on the cloud for whatever reason it is. So what are the options they have?
So I think you'll know more on the timelines on some of the other things. There is right now, it depends on what needs to be not in the cloud and what needs to be on premise. Like John was saying earlier, there's direct query, there's also Live Connect. If you're, say, using SSAS for a cube of some sort, that can stay on premise. And then your query, the actual things that support the visuals would be in the cloud. So quite recently, there was just the SQL Server reporting services public preview for Power BI integration was just announced. So that's in preview. I'm not sure at all on the timeline specifically there, and that would provide essentially a way to put all the Power BI visuals into an on-premise server, and then based on however your organization, surface that out to the rest of the end users, potentially on an internal network, some sort of VPN-based web portal. Whatever you're using, it remains to be seen exactly how those details are. At least I'm not sure what they are since it's so recent. But
Yeah.
that's another way to keep the whole platform on premise versus, your data is on premise, visuals are in the cloud, and in between. You can also, of course, have everything in the cloud if you want.
Yep. No reason not to. Anything else? Okay. Thanks.
Of course.
So yeah, like you said, analysis services, right, is a big thing that Power BI can ingest from, right?
Very well.
And
It's my favorite.
yeah. But of course, Power BI is one of the biggest ones, and like I said earlier, there's a lot more integration coming. A lot of the things you mentioned, a lot of that was on our roadmap, so that a lot of the roadmap items are being implemented in the fourth quarter here, right? So actually some we've delivered already, but others, you won't see until like the latter part of December. So, let's see here. Oh, I was going to say about our services. So we bought out Revolution R a little over a year ago, and we incorporated that. So R basically is open source code that actually there's over 1,000 different algorithms that you can use and incorporate with Power BI. So it's like tree clustering and all these advanced analytics that you can just seamlessly integrate with Power BI. So that's basically, and then of course our server is what Microsoft offers. It enhanced Revolution R so that it could work with other solutions like SQL Server or SQL Server reporting services. One click to publish to Power BI, so that just shows you, it integrates with Excel, and you just click the publish button, and it can publish to the Power BI service. And then of course you have the Power BI desktop, which, as I said, you have, on the client side, you have the publish capability there as well. So this just shows how you can use desktop, right, for discovery and exploration. You can actually prepare that data So a lot of times I've created charts in the desktop area. You can actually go into desktop, create these dials, etc. You can actually model your data, right, and say, okay, I need to connect country in the country table with country in the operating expense table or the sales table, right? So you map different fields to it, the keys, so to speak. And then you can save that as a .pbix file, and then you can either, upload that to the Power BI service, etc. So it gives you that easy report authoring, right? It has the canvas. Now the canvas, of course, Power BI Desktop has its own canvas, but of course the service has its own canvas as well. And so a lot of times, if you've got this preset of visualizations, you don't have to be in the service, right? You just create, all these tiles, and then you can actually upload them, like I said, that PBIX, and say pin this to a particular report, profit and sales. And now I want this report pinned to my particular dashboard. And then, of course, like I said, our integration, right? You can do those advanced analytics. And a lot of times this is, working in conjunction with like Azure Machine Learning, right? Maybe you want to enhance something that came out of Azure Machine Learning, and you could say, oh, I want some of these R advanced algorithms to work with that and give me something more intelligent, something more predictive. Alex, have you worked with R in the?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. So we have one or two data scientists normally in the Minnesota office who are doing some things with Power BI and R. I've done some, some small engagements with R inside of Power BI. Essentially, you can take your R script, pull your data in, create your R visuals in there. And then we've got another client, doing some stuff where they're looking to get things into our server soon enough. But yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So, so this as far as access, right? Access your on-premise data any way you like, and again, you can do that with the Power BI Gateway. So you have that scheduled refresh, and again with Power BI Pro, you can actually refresh every hour, or you can have this live connection to your data. And then of course you can connect to SQL Server analysis services, either in the tabular capabilities or with the SQL Server. If it's in multi-dimensional form, you can work with that as well. Like I was talking about earlier, you can connect not only with big data, but with the Internet of Things, with your data warehouse, and of course with advanced analytics. So obviously the idea is to bring that holistic, unified approach, right, across your data sources so that you can see more, you can actually do it much more cost effectively, and of course there's enhancements in that area where we're trying to make it more intelligent. So as the enhancements in Cortana Intelligence Suite come about, right, with the Azure Machine Learning becomes more intelligence and more integrated, there's going to be more capabilities to do things with the Internet of Things. And you guys are familiar with the 3 V's of big data? Yes? No? Right? Volume, velocity, and variety, right? So as that can go, big data is in one form, right? Big. Then there's variety, right? It's both structured and unstructured. And then there's velocity, right? It's coming in faster and faster from all these different sources, right? Machine-generated data, sensors, right? Wearable technologies, right? It's all coming in faster. And so a lot of companies are trying to say, hey, we want to be on the cutting edge, right? Without being on the bleeding edge too much, right? We want to be on the cutting edge of collecting all this data so that we can beat our competitors to the punch. Now, a lot of times a tool can be the greatest thing in the world, but if you make it hard for your developers to extend that capability to your other sources, right, to your blogs, to your websites, to reporting services, to the data Zen part, right, which is the mobile capability, then you're not really doing yourself a favor, right? But we've made it easier for the developers to actually do that. So as I mentioned earlier, Power BI Embedded, you can actually put those interactive visuals right into your website or blog so they can integrate, right? So if you have apps that you created in your business, you can have that Power BI embedded code, right? And Power BI, the service, right? You just say, hey, I want to embed this in my website, blog, or app, and it'll generate the code for you, right? So there's no reinventing the wheel there. So that extends it, right? But not only with embedded, but we extend Power BI's capability with those content packs so that you can actually get directly to those data sources, whether they're internal or you're subscribing to those as a service, right? If you've got Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, you can incorporate that and marry that data together with Power BI. And then you can integrate that together and those experiences inside your application. So again, this just shows, right, visualize your data anyway with custom visuals. And that's basically that gallery that has those hundreds, if not thousands of different visualization capabilities. We have one called Sandance, actually, that's only been out, I don't know, about 6 or 8 months. But it's actually helps you view your data as fine grains of sand, right, in raw, granular format, right? So we had one of our data scientists show that off in Power BI by saying, hey, I was running all this data from every single city and town in the United States, and I wanted to find out what towns make the most money, and what towns are making the least money. And actually, you know what town made one of the least amount of money? Was Stanford, California. And he was like, why is that? And he found out, well, you know, there's so many people working on their masters or PhDs that they're not making money yet, right? So it was pretty interesting. And then he cross-correlated that with a lot of the other towns in the US, and a lot of college towns weren't popping up then. So he's like, we saw things with Sandance that we weren't going to see any other way by cross-correlating that raw granular data. It was, you know, had thousands of different colors, but it made it put it into what do you call it, a histogram, right? It put it into a histogram, and you could instantly see where those patterns were. And then they just passed those grains of sand moved out into a map of the US, and you could instantly see. So the idea there is that, yes, we do, you know, we give you the custom visuals that are right for your enterprise, for your business, and you can draw that into the Power BI service. We give you developer APIs, right? Those application programming interfaces. And so you can create those reports or dashboards programmatically if you want, but the idea there is to give you the flexibility and the agility to deliver it to the audience that you want. So it could be a bunch of developers that need to see these, but likely it's probably the chief marketing officer, it's the chief revenue officer, right, that want to see these high-level visuals. And we've made it a lot easier for you to deliver on that promise. You can push data from an application into the Power BI service, of course. We've given you added integration capabilities so you can integrate with those application workflows. And again, that's whether the application is on-premise or in the cloud, right? You can integrate those capabilities, the data coming in from a service, let's say, that you have, and that doesn't have to be Microsoft Cloud, right, Azure. It can be from AWS, for example. In real time, you can do that real-time content management and monitoring. And again, that's across different data sources or even sensor data that may be coming in very quickly. This just shows, like I said, SQL Server reporting services, delivering on paginated reports, mobile reports, and then of course we have a new web portal where you can actually coalesce all your reports in one browser, right? Whether it's any of the browsers that you can think of. And right, the reporting services investments, again, Microsoft is incorporating more of these services together. Analysis services, reporting services, Data Zen, and the Power BI service, right? So that you get that one unified experience. You know, this is obvious stuff, right? You can pin the gauges and charts and maps, but you want to be able to drill through to those reports and get the same experience on mobile that you do, you know, when you're logged in through your browser, right? So you can get that, you will be getting that same capability on your mobile device. This just shows some customer success stories, right? Metro Bank, Self-Service BI, they're using only Power BI, but they knew based on their growth and everything that they wanted not only more visual appealing stuff, but they wanted to make it cost effective and user friendly. And user friendly was a key thing to denote with them because, as you know, there's a lot of complex tools out there that people are like, wait, how do I even build a basic visual here, let alone share it with somebody else? I won't read through all these other ones, but basically you can see that whether it's big data or whether it's on-prem or whether it's IoT devices on the right, you can incorporate all the data coming in from those sources. Now, it's obvious, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? You want to make sure that it's, you usually probably want to have your ETL or ELT processes well-defined and, you know, cleaning up or transforming that data prior to it being unified in the Power BI service. So that's obviously one thing. And of course, you know, a lot of people that have those problems, right? They get a big problem trying to meet their SLAs because they have their data warehouse doing like, you know, spending 40 to 70% of their cycles doing ELT, right? Or if they have an appliance, they're doing ELT, right? Extract, load, and then they use the power of the appliance to transform. Well, that's all well and good. Now you've got clean data, but you might, you know, when I was at Cloudera, we had one of the founders, right, the CTO there saying, hey, I was at Yahoo before I founded Cloudera, and I was using 7 hours to do ETL. And they gave me an 8-hour window. So he says I was 1 hour away from getting fired, right? Because he said if I use that last hour, I'm never going to catch up, right? And so a lot of people are missing their SLAs. You know what he did? Hadoop was fairly young back then, and he moved that ETL, 7 hours of ETL onto Hadoop. It got it down from 7 hours to like 15, 20 minutes. So the light bulb went out. He married up with some people from Oracle and Google and Facebook, and they founded Cloudera in 2008. And of course, Microsoft continues that with HD Insight and other solutions within the Cortana Intelligence Suite, right? So that if you offload that 40 to 70% of processing that's going on in your data warehouse, right, that frees up a lot of those cycles so it can do the high-end online analytical processing, right, the high-end OLAP that you probably bought your warehouse to do. And then that frees up those cycles. You know, you may say, well, I've got very slow delivery to the BI tools and dashboards. Well, once you offload that, notice I didn't say get rid of your data warehouse, right? I just said offload the ETL. Then that frees up that cycles, and now you'll deliver those analytics much more performant and in a scalable fashion to BI tools like Power BI. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Yeah, does Power BI have any kind of fuzzy grouping or fuzzy matching capability?
Good question. Not that I know of, but go ahead.
This time,
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in there.
Right.
If the question is in terms of data, mapping, not so much. If there's a few things I've seen in custom visuals for like some maps, some groupings that you can do, but there's nothing.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the R libraries would have something on that, because, like I said, it's over 1,000 different algorithms. So I'm pretty sure that fuzzy grouping or fuzzy math would be part of that. Does that answer your question?
Well, I was hoping you said yes. We're working on that.
Yeah. Well, we can hope all day long.
Let me show you right here.
Yeah. Okay. Good night. No. Okay. So, but no, really. I mean, we've got things on the roadmap like elastic scaling in Azure, right? So that we can do all those mathematical formulas a lot more in a performant way, right? If you have a lot of users or a lot of workloads hitting your BI tool, you'll want that to scale up, right? And so we're gonna have elastic scaling in Azure so that it can meet that peak demand. Right, because in Azure, you don't, even if you're in the premium tier, you don't want to start at the very top tier, because then if you get a peak load, you have nowhere further up to go to, right? But yeah, that's something that we don't have right now, but we do have, if you go to ideas.powerbi.com, they've got a ton of things on the roadmap, right? Features and functionalities and requests, and you can actually upvote what you think is your priority for your company. So they use that. Yeah, pretty cool, right? Because then you can tell, you actually have a much more direct communication and voice with the Microsoft Power BI product team, right? And they'll use that feedback to prioritize what's on the roadmap.
All right.
Any other questions? No? Aon, of course, used Power BI with SQL Server reporting services and analysis services. So like I was saying earlier, right, it freed them up to work on other things, right? Again, Power BI is there to be at the service of your business, not to be your business. And of course, we already mentioned a few of these, but of course, you know, the idea is to, like it says on the bottom right here, transform the way you're making decisions. Well, people usually want to make decisions pretty quickly, right? And know in a predictive way, hey, I want to know there's a problem before the problem actually happens, right? And so they want more intelligent analytics. So people like Alex and I, right, we help them map out the right solution and say, hey, did you realize that, and usually they realize most of this, right? They realize, hey, we got to take these actions. We got to actually architect how we want to get there, right? Because this is our current infrastructure, and there's a whole smattering of that. But then we got to say, hey, this is, you're not meeting your SLAs right here. Or, no, you want to offload the ETL from your warehouse. Or, oh, we have, a lot of times people say, we've got 5, 10, or even more years of data that we put onto tape or SAN, right? Well, if you put it on tape, it takes an act of God or government to get it off of tape, right? And so, usually that's when people say, well, have you thought about a big data solution like HD Insight, right? Where you can put it on Azure Data Lake, right? And then you have it in one central location, what we call an active archive, right? You can actually query that data if you need to, right? Even though it's historical data. This shows like California, like for what they're using Power BI for, right? Water irrigation and stream analytics, right? So they're actually having, Power BI consume the stream analytics coming off of Azure, and then they get much quicker analytics, right? To say, hey, this is how we have to manage the water distribution within our localities here. Some of the announcements that we've had, right? March 2016, we've had Power BI Desktop, I already mentioned Sandance. Enterprise capabilities, right? This was a big one, role level security for cloud models, right? So that you can say, I need certain roles, and depending on what role you're in, you're only going to get access to these certain rows of data, right, in SQL Server or what have you. Direct query, I already mentioned, right, sending out the query out to the actual data source. Often people have hundreds of terabytes of data, or even if they have multiple terabytes, right, you don't want to bring that back to the client. Mobile, Apple Watch support. Okay, I'm always learning something new. I didn't even know we had Apple Watch support, so that's good to know. Pinning from Excel. In April 2016, we created the trend lines, but also the drill through, right? So like I mentioned, you can have multiple axes on your chart, multiple axes, right? Region, country, state, whatever. Intelligent exploration. So there's an improved Q&A experience, and that's something that I'll be showing in the demo. Microsoft Trust Center. How many of you have to meet like the HIPAA requirements or any financial requirements? Okay, privacy requirements. Okay, good. Okay. So yeah, those are usually, right, depending on your industry, something that, hey, it's not an option, right? We have to meet these compliance protocols. And so we have the Microsoft Trust Center to say, hey, did you meet these SOC 2 compliance or the HIPAA compliance or PCI? And you can actually go to the Trust Center to say, hey, I need to know that this was audited, right? And these are audited on an annual basis. And you can see the actual report that Microsoft, Power BI meets those requirements. Was there a question?
Yeah, how?
How?
Okay, right. So, like the HIPAA and high tech are relatively broad based, and so obviously compliance is, throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But like what's it checking? Like how's it?
Well, it's checking like the auditor's report that says, yeah, you met the HIPAA compliance requirements, and that's different, right? If you're in healthcare, it might have some more deep down requirements, like,
Okay.
we encrypted your social security number or your credit card number.
So are these entered by the user? Like I would enter them. I would say, okay, here's the report, or here's the.
Well, Microsoft has a whole center where they've put the reports in there to be and made it available to the end user.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can actually get, and I had actually a company that asked me for that. They said, can you please prove that I can get access to this report? So I had to do this research, and I actually came across the Trust Center where they could actually say, yeah, oh, okay, it has that certification that I need to prove in my industry that it meets the SOC 2 compliance or what have you.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, obviously, that's a good point. I mean, there's not only do you want to have access to the right reports, but you want to address the right use case with the right security guideline, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if I have to encrypt everything on disk, okay, that might be fine. But maybe, I've come across areas where they said, well, I've got all these external applications and it's not going to be able to search on a social security number, right? But maybe they didn't have the super strict requirements. Okay, well, maybe data masking works, right? Where you only hide the first, everything but the last 4 digits of the social, right? So it's still protected from the people that are inside your company, right? That you're trusting with access to your data, right? The DBA and the system administrator. But it's abstracted away from that, so that you don't have to worry about rewriting all your applications.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it, because there's so many different pieces with the role-based
Sure.
access, and then minimum level of access, and
Yeah.
meaningful use. And so I'm
Right.
like looking at that, I'm like, I don't know exactly what they're doing. So I'm
Mhm.
sure it's right on point, but
Yeah.
I got to look at those reports just
Right.
to see.
Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
a lot of it too, we've had some clients who do face, a few right now with some of the EU side of things, which I'm not as directly familiar with, or HIPAA or PHI stuff. And it's, my understanding of the way I will explain it is usually that the Microsoft technologies can support these, but it still relies on actually implementing them in a responsible manner. They can't take that off from whoever's developing.
Yeah.
But assuming you're providing and complying with that data on your own, the Microsoft side also supports that.
Yeah.
Particularly in terms of the auditability and logging.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for when it's working
And I
with,
think that's probably the biggest piece, isn't it? Right? If you can make sure that if you can turn on logging and auditing in certain areas, then you're in much better shape. Then the reports are starting to make more sense, because it's logging what I want it to log and that sort of thing.
yeah, and there's best practices for audit logging as well, right? But we also have enhancements in like SQL Server 2016, right? So not just the encryption, right? It used to do, hey, we always have encryption over the wire, but now we have encryption on disk, right? And now we have like advanced threat analytics. So we have a whole Microsoft Center of Threat Analytics, right? That's based on the latest research on the incoming threats to an organization. So it knows how to advance, detect those in an advanced way. Now, obviously, there's a joke, right? It's not a joke; it's serious. That they said there's those that data sources that have been breached, and there's those that don't know they have been breached, right? So that's the sad state. So what Microsoft has done, yeah, we have this advanced threat analytics, but it's also like peeling the layers of the onion. We assume that somebody's already broken into the system, and so we limit the amount of damage they can do if they are in there, right? So we have layers of protection around the database and the network and everything else. So yeah, it's got to work in conjunction with that, right? And so this is just saying, yeah, you have access to verify that we met these compliance standards. But that's a good point. It works holistically with the other pieces of the puzzle. General security details. So yeah, this was where we talk about Azure Active Directory, right? It validates you. So like in the big data arena, right? We had authentication, right? So basically authenticating who you are before you even get into a big data cluster, right? Same thing here, it authenticates who you are. Then once you're in, you have authorization, right? It authorizes who you are, right? And you have different permissions, right? Read, write, execute, or all of the above, right? Based on that. And then, of course, we have the role-based security in conjunction with that, right? So even if you are authenticated, and then even if you are authorized, there's only certain sets, maybe subsets of data. And that could be based on geography, or that could be based on a role, or what group you belong to. So again, it works hand in hand with that. Now when you connect to a data and create a dashboard, it's yours, only you can view that dashboard. And again, the administrator from this admin center can control who's part of a group, and therefore have access to certain dashboards and reports. You distribute the dashboard through sharing, you create an organizational content pack, or through Office 365 groups. And then of course, these are some of the details, right, of how it works on-premise, right? So if you have on-prem data, it works with SQL Server analysis services, either the cube or the tabular model. The connection type is live interactive query. If you have SQL relational data, you can do live direct query. If you have regular relational data, you can upload through those PBIX files or through those Excel files. And then of course, if you're in the cloud, right, you have SQL Azure, you can also use live direct query. SQL Azure, you can upload those PBIX or Excel. And for organizational content packs, those are instantiated through just hitting Get Data, which is on the bottom of the navigation bar, and you go to your organizational content pack. And again, I'll show you that in the demo. But and then of course you have streaming, real-time data. Everyone sees the same data through common credentials, and you control that through sharing or publishing content packs. And those can be secure content packs.
Question on that. With
Sure.
the embedded part with Excel, if you've got digital rights management turned on, does it take precedence over?
If you have digital right management enabled,
Yes.
okay, I don't know the answer to that.
Sure, they're still looking into that one.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to find out. As far as files uploaded, data security, right? You can connect through Power BI Desktop, right? And then you control who gets visibility through the sharing or a content pack or collaborating through an Office 365 group. And again, like I said, there's more enhancements coming with the Sharepoint capability. It's based on credentials, of course. Whoever created the file, all users seeing the same data, and when the data is refreshed, consumers will see the same refreshed data that the creator does. How does it work with the security work with the SQL Server Analysis Services connector? Basically, you see how that works here, right? It resolves the name to an authorized user, like I was saying, and then it applies the appropriate role-based security. And you can restrict the access based on that. The Enterprise Gateway allows you to create a secure connection between on-prem analysis services and the Power BI service. And then you can do the interactive queries with the analysis services cubes or the tabular models to fetch your data using the credentials. So the idea, right, you only see the data you're supposed to see. And then when you click on tiles, this is a key part, right? With analysis services dashboards, the query is passed to the source and data is pulled back interactively. So that means data in your report is as up to date as the source is. And then of course you don't have to upload subsets of data to the Power BI service, right? Because you have the latest data. Dashboard tiles also update every 10 minutes. So we're ready for any questions before we get to the demo? No? Okay, so let me escape out of this. Okay, so this is basically the Power BI service screen that you first see. And when I click sign in, it'll automatically authenticate me. It's because I've entered my password previously. And then of course, as you see on the top right here, right, it has my picture, it has these help menus, I can give feedback, I can download a certain dashboard or tile, change some settings. But of course, this is like a sample dashboard with multiple tiles, of course. And then in the top left area, if I click this yellow area square with the dots, it shows the Office 365 areas like SharePoint, etc., as well as connections to like OneDrive and Yammer, etc. Now, if I go to this menu here, this actually is the navigation bar. How many have seen the navigation bar before? Okay. So basically, if I can zoom this in a little bit, you see you have your workspaces, which Alex was talking about before, and then you have the different areas like dashboards, and you can see we have a ton of dashboards. Scroll down, you see the report section, and then you have something called data sets. So, and then at the bottom of data sets, that's where that menu, that button is that says get data. So I'll click get data, and you can see that you can get actually either from these content packs, either my organizational content packs or different services out there, as well as you can import or connect to data from files or databases. So if I click my organization, you see the different content packs that we've created here, Azure Service Bus Relay, or some of the other Azure dashboards that we have here. If I click on services, then you can see like the other source systems that I mentioned, like Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics, or any of the other software as a service connectivity that we have here. And of course, there's different databases, whether we're talking SQL Server or otherwise. But right now for the demo, I'm going to click on Get under Files, and then I'll just say Local File. And then under Documents, I have this one, if I can find it, yep, there it is, Excel Demo. And I'll say Open, and then I'll say Import, and it says Importing Excel Demo. And it gives me a little status on the top right. It says data could take a little while, and it always depends on if I'm on a Wi-Fi, etc. But there it says success, your dashboard is now ready. So now I can go actually to the data set here. If I can unzoom it here. And yeah, there it is, Excel demo under data sets. And here's the palette here. Again, maybe Microsoft Edge isn't the best area to show this, but I can click on like this horizontal bar chart and make it a little bigger so you can see it. And here's where I was talking about earlier, right, where we have country table, operating expense table, and sales table. This is stuff that I would play around with Power Pivot, right, and that's why, you know, usually Excel people really like the idea that they can connect their data in this fashion, but I can actually put region, for example, in the axis field.
Quick question.
Sure.
Could you show us what the Excel actually looks like?
What it looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excel,
okay.
yeah.
So, let's see. If I go to Documents, Excel demo. Okay, hang on a sec.
Do you not have Power Pivot enabled?
I thought it was enabled. I don't know why it's not showing the data, but
Show it in the table view of Power BI.
what's that?
Show it in the table view of Power BI. Go back in Power BI.
Well,
He just wants to see the data.
yeah, I don't know why it's not showing, but
You probably had like Power Pivot add and get disabled.
yeah. So anyway, sorry, I don't have, yeah, I don't have that enabled, so. But it had all these fields, right? That this is where we connected country and the country table to country and the sales table, for example. And where's the country now? Country in the axis. And then we had gross. Let me zoom in on here. This. Gross sales in the value field and gross profit in the color saturation field. No, I have it in the wrong field there. Gross profit in the color saturation field. I don't know why it's going in the wrong field here. Gross profit. Okay. There we go. I don't know why it's such a small field. So there, you can see it, right, Asia Pacific, etc. And so this is where we've enabled drill down, right on this, right, it says click to turn on drill down, and you can actually drill down into the different areas. So if I go down to this double left down arrow on the top left here, I can actually change that, and it changes to the country area. And then if I click on this ellipsis that says more options there on the top right, I can actually say, oh, I need to sort this by country or by gross sales. I'll choose sort by gross sales, and it automatically does that. And then I can use the pin visual. It says save your report, so I'll save it to something called profit and sales, and say save and continue. And then it says, do you want to pin that to a dashboard? I'll say yes to a new dashboard, and I'll call it profit and sales dashboard, and say pin. So the idea is that I save this report, but it's the first report out of many that I may want to put onto that dashboard. Now, if I actually go to the profit and sales dashboard, profit and sales, okay. Now this is the Q&A portion of the demo, right? It uses natural language processing. So the idea is you don't have to know SQL to do that. You can say show total gross profit. And then notice immediately it gives you hints, right? So you can't go wrong and type in a wrong field. It'll tell you exactly what's available for the Q&A. So I'll say gross profit by country. And immediately it comes up with a country map, right? And it shows exactly the gross profit by country. And then I can say by product category, and I'm still getting my hints. And now it changes from green circles to, multicolored circles. So it shows the different categories. And then let's say I want to change maybe I want a map for one dashboard, but I want a tree map for another dashboard. So I could say as tree map. And it saves it that way. So usually people are pretty impressed at that point, right? Because they're like, hey, I saw this 9 to 12 months ago and it couldn't do anything close to that, right? So that's basically what you do, and of course you can pin it to your dashboard. Now, if I go to, obviously the end product is going to be something like this, right? Where you got SQL Server reporting services. This is where I was talking about Data Zen being incorporated into and becoming part of SQL Server reporting services. So you can have those mobile reports or paginated reports, and you end up getting a dashboard that's applicable for your enterprise, and you can access from any of your mobile devices. This is just to show you where Data Zen fits into the whole ecosystem, right? Before it kind of lost its Data Zen name, right? It's working with relational OLAP part of the Power BI service, working together with the operational reporting part of the dashboards in the service. And of course, you see how desktop fits into the ecosystem there. Finally, whether you're running a construction company or a power plant or let's say transportation, you can build a dashboard like this with Power BI, and of course you can pick the appropriate continent, let's say North and Central America, and it changes the metrics for that. But let's say I hit trucker in this, and again this could be a power plant, etc. And it's simply, well, I got to authenticate again. Yeah, see, that's a feature, right? Yeah. So it actually authenticates. It proves that you can't get to it unless you're authenticated. So let's try that one more time. North America. And I go to trucker. There we go. So basically this could be a transportation company or a power plant or what have you. And it instantly shows you exactly your trucks or your plants in green, yellow, or red, right? Depending on what the status or thresholds are. Let's say I click on this red truck and I instantly get the metrics for that. So the idea is that it's incorporated working holistically with Bing Maps, so you can get those geographic, right? And we even do like color shading for different zip codes, right? And again, you can add other intelligence here, whether it's from Azure Machine Learning or the Microsoft R service and open source R. Does that make sense? So that's basically it for the demo. Any questions? And Alex is going to help me ask and answer any deep down technical questions because he's actually done real live customer demos and ingesting from cubes, for example. So.
One quick question. Is this map or live data on the desktop version also available or within the
I don't think it's on the desktop, right? No, not the desktop.
It's on the
Yeah.
I mean, so the question of a map to live data on desktop, you could do it if you had a cube that was very live, and there are mapping features within Power BI Desktop on its own. Not to this particular sort of map. This would be on the embedded side of things. But yeah, if you had a cube that was updating frequently, you could show that data in the Power BI built-in maps, desktop maps, for instance.
You have a question back here?
Yeah. So what would you say are the strengths and weaknesses of Power BI versus Tableau?
I'd say that, well, at least from my perspective, it's a lot more integrated with the cloud. So it's kind of like cloud first. We've done a lot of testing, and it's kind of like the same story with SQL Server. SQL Server is cloud first too, and at first I thought, wait a minute, being rather new to Microsoft, I was like, is that just marketing or what? But I found out from our product team that actually in Azure SQL Database, they've tested features up to a year, and even some features are almost 2 years tested in Azure before they actually became generally available on SQL Server on-prem. So that's tested cloud first, and Power BI is tested cloud first in most instances. Did you have something to add to that?
I think that's a good summation for you when you're talking about the broader enterprise needs there versus some of the Tableau cloud areas. One thing I like about Power BI Desktop is also the promotion side of things, and as you can start a model in Power BI Desktop and move it up as it gets bigger, and there's a very rich analytical language behind it, DAX, that you can use to provide a lot of visuals as well. And once you've moved past, this. Okay, you made a Power BI Desktop file, you load it in, and okay, now it's 4 gigabytes, or if you need to connect to a few billion rows of data imported, and you really want that imported side versus that direct query side, then okay, you can move it up to a server grade and keep going there.
From a usability perspective, feature perspective, you think Power BI has an edge over, again, Tableau as an example?
Yeah, Tableau still, because it is a leader, right? And they've come out earlier, we'd have to honestly say that they have some unique advantages, right, as far as on-prem. I remember in 2011 being kind of intimidated with how to create some graphics in Tableau, right? Because, it just depends on what you're used to, right? They like to tout their ease of use and what have you. They're trying to enhance the mobile side, right? And the collaboration. So, it's kind of like, do we, like the last firm I was at, they're like, hey, this is a lot of bolt-on technology, right? Whereas we're trying to create stuff that's out of the box, that it was actually written for mobility. It was actually written for the cloud, so you can get that self-service agility that you're looking for. But yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a good summation. Yeah, like you said, Tableau's the leader in visuals. I think for the most part, almost all visuals you'd want to make, you can make in Power BI. If you want to do some particular things, if I'm thinking of a few times that I've seen Tableau in like a TED presentation or something like there, but for I haven't really seen anything where most visuals you want, you can get them in Power BI and easily add them with D3JS custom visuals. I don't know a comparable site for Tableau.
They don't have the Q&A feature, for example. So
What was the limit with the free account?
I think it's 10 gig, right?
There's a variety of limits. It might make sense to take that one offline.
Yeah.
It depends exactly what you want. I could talk for a while.
No, just from the feature perspective.
The biggest difference, I can speak to that, between free and pro. I've been explaining this for the last week for one implementation. Essentially, like things like the group workspaces, the content packs, the on-prem gateway are all pro. Connecting live to different sources is pro. For free, it's if you want to do things in a manual fashion, that is sort of what you have instead. But you have exactly the same authoring capabilities, exactly the same report capabilities. If you've gone as far as you can in free, you're not going to lose anything by transferring to pro. You don't have to restart by any means. So essentially what Pro offers is collaboration and a lot more enterprise features.
Yeah.
When you're making reports, the folks you have making reports, making dashboards, they never need to know that there's a difference.
Yeah, and one add-on to that is that obviously if you want a quick summation of that, do a Bing search of what is Power BI Pro content. There's a perfect blog that explains what is free content and what is pro content. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And one other thing is in Power BI Embedded, I forgot to mention, the first 100 renders, like in Power BI Embedded, are free, and then after 100, it's only 5 cents per render. So it's pretty cost effective. You had another question?
Yeah. What level of effort does it take to basically, translate, rearrange this so that it's going to look accessible on my mobile device?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's why we have partners.
Yes, so if we switch back to the Power BI specific one, so something like this where you are building that app you'd have to build on that integration, you would have to build that particular sort of area for mobile. What you get, which is nice with just Power BI dashboard specifically, is everything you put on a dashboard will go, you just have to log into the Power BI app. I use usually the iOS for one. And as soon as you pin a visual to the dashboard, you'll see it on your dashboard in mobile. There's essentially nothing you need to do extra to get that. Now, you can do extra things if you want to make something specific to mobile where you're wanting to leverage that. So what will happen is, like, if you have a map tile, you'll see a map tile on your phone. A map may not make sense on a phone. It might be good on a tablet as well. There's a feature in there. Essentially, I think it's called Tidal Flow, where you can order what you have in your dashboard via the web, and that order will stay static on the phone. If you turn that on, it'll rearrange to what it thinks the order should be. And then for the reports, which is more where you're specifically, altering the field lists, changing your visual up, you can pin those into the tablet as well. You don't have that report side of things in mobile, and that's sort of, when we have the dashboards and reports over on the navigation window, that's the difference. The reports are where you're authoring, dashboard is where you're consuming. Report you can also consume. Does that answer the question?
80%.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, so this one's a dashboard, so these would rearrange onto your mobile device. You'd see them there. They're immediately there if you log in to your account on the phone with the app. And then a report is more, if you click on one of these pieces, I'm not sure which ones you
sure.
go to.
Just
So this will load up. Okay, so this one's more in the actual report. Looks like so one thing you'll notice is that there's edit report there. And that's grayed out, so that means John is a view-only person to that report. But that report is just a slightly different interface. It's that same interface you see in Power BI Desktop versus the dashboard, which you only see in the service. Now, it's nomenclature. They're both dashboards to most people, but they're just different ways of interacting.
Can you merge multiple sources, like, Alteryx does the data wrangling? So you take data from Marketo Insights, and then you take it with your CRM, you merge that data on the fly, and then produce analytics. Can you do those kind of things?
So, in large part, yes. It depends on how you want to leverage that. So also within Power BI Desktop, it integrates some of the Power Query features from Excel, where you can perform that mashup, and then you can load that up to Power BI service.
So you do that and
Desktop. So I would use, if you had what was your example, Marketo and
so
CRM?
Marketo you use for campaign, and CRM is where your orders are. They want to tie it up, make a funnel.
Yes, so you can do that with the import mode pretty easily. If you're looking for it live, you'd need to go into further backend stuff to build out. But if you were, you had a Marketo output every day, a CRM output every day, and all of history, you can combine those, integrate them in the desktop, and then publish that out to the service.
It's kind of like working with an Excel workbook with multiple tabs, right? You can pick and choose all of them in desktop or just a
but that's
subset, right?
within spreadsheet, so
Well,
you're
sure.
okay.
Yeah, you're
You
talking
get a
about
model
direct
within
access,
spreadsheet,
right?
But these are two separate systems.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, so you
He's
can use
talking about
Power.
mashup, right?
Yeah, so that's where you use Power Query and you model your data. Has a lot of information and transformations to connect to the data. So then that becomes a new model. So, comparable to Alteryx for that mashup stuff. It's not the exact same feature names, but
So you need the fuzzy group, fuzzy match.
hopefully they had that.
Well, that's not my question though. One of the things I really like about the desktop version is easy to bring in a lot of data sources, and the entity matching up, it's real fast. Sometimes you don't even have to think about it. It's already linked it up before you've even done anything. And you can pull a table out, but sometimes I want to export a table that maybe contains more than 30,000 rows in it, and I'm limited from doing any more than 30. I think it's 30, isn't it? Is it a cap of 30?
I'm not sure how you can configure the CSV export limit there.
I think it maxes out at that. Then you can work around it by loading R. And R will let you export 100 or 150,000 rows.
Are you in Power BI Pro?
No, I'm not. I'm in the desktop free.
Oh, in
version
desktop
right
free, yeah, okay.
Because
But that's kind of what I think he was hinting
Yeah,
at earlier.
right.
There's different layers of
Yeah, so
levels
it
of-
depends on what you want to do. I mean, Power BI is built for dashboarding and visualizations. It's really not built for as a data export tool if you want that row by row sort of data. But the one nice thing is if you've done all those mashups within Power Query, you can take all of your queries, transfer them into Excel 2016. You should probably use 2016 if you're going to transform from Power BI Desktop and you want those same transformations you've worked on. You can load them into the Power Queries, or now known as Get Data feature there, and then you can do all your exports in there. Now because it depends on what you want to extract. If you want to take out the backing CSV report for a bar chart, I would first ask, why do you want that when you have a bar chart? But if you want those 30,000, 100,000 records, that's more
You wanna
of a
sell
data
that
processing piece than a data visualization piece.
Yeah, you actually want to sell the spreadsheet to somebody.
Oh, okay. That'd be an interesting case. Yeah, I think we could talk after.
Do we have anything like Tableau Public for presenting our skills to the recruiters?
Tableau Public.
I would say you could use Power BI Free for that. So there's another feature there, which I will call out as very much not a feature to enterprises. You probably shouldn't use this feature, where you can make completely public and open Power BI reports and dashboards. So that's where you don't want that on in your organization, probably. I can't say for sure in all cases, but you probably don't want that. And so what you can do there is you build your Power BI desktop files, upload them to the service in the free version. You could do Pro as well if you needed some of the features there in terms of space. And then you can basically do publish to everyone, where anyone can see it. And then you just can pass the URL on to people and they could see what you've made.
I think I accidentally did that once. I said, publish this dashboard, and I'm like, oh crap, I better not share this link with anybody.
Yeah, it's happened.
Is there any kind of community that's support that kind of thing, where they share the kinds of visuals they've created?
Actually, that's another good thing. Maybe.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so this is another thing. So there's that ideas forum that John was referring to earlier. Right. Another side within the Power BI .com side is the forum there for service and desktop and a whole bunch of other features or areas within it. And there's a lot of people out there just, beyond just sharing what they've made in Power BI Desktop, people asking questions. How can I write this time intelligence function to get my budgets year over year? How can I make this sort of visual? And there's a pretty rich community out there for that sort of thing, as well as people. They recently have a data stories contest that's happening or is about to happen. I didn't investigate too carefully since basically everything I do I can't share. But there's also that where there's some data stories that people can win competitions in.
Yeah. And a lot of the things I come across in the community are either, like when I'm researching, right, and if it's not something that just recently came out, like Power BI Embedded, I'll often come across the DAX formulas like you were talking about and say, oh, okay, this is the older way of doing it. Or it's either, roadmap items that say, hey, there's a lot of clamoring for connecting to SAP HANA or SAP BW or something, right? And there's people clamoring for connectors to that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that as well.
Which is, I'll comment on there in terms of searching for things. They release, Power BI Desktop has a major update every single month at the start of the month. Right. The service has updates. There could be one tomorrow morning. Well, we won't know. And it updates all the time. So you have to stay on top of it. The service will be updating often. The desktop updates every month. And so I haven't seen any bad releases, if the people think of that. But I have seen times where, maybe you want to wait, maybe you don't. Do you need grid lines feature? That just came out recently. And so that's just another one to call out, which also means staying on top of things. Right. There's a deluge of information.
Yeah, and there's often a technical preview period where they say, hey, if you're going to try this out, we, A, expect you to give feedback back to Microsoft, right? And B, we trust that you're going to use this in a test dev environment, right? You're not going to put it in production until, yes, all the kinks have worked out, you've given us feedback, and now it's ready to be GA'd. I'm sorry, who was next right there?
Yeah, I was going to go back about three questions because it ties into one that he had. Most of the data that I deal with, or I think a lot of people do, it's going to be data that's over time.
Right.
All right. Mm-hmm. So when you're going after your data, a lot of times you'll find out that
Yeah.
you know, the date was stored in a human readable format because it
Right.
comes from a system from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So now I've either got to write a script, put that in another
Yeah.
table, massage it.
Because it's time series data, right?
Yeah, or sometimes, you know, there may be a function that says, okay, make my date out of these three fields. This
Yeah.
is the month, this is the day, this is the year.
Right.
Since this is basically just data visualization,
Right.
what pieces of the tools or bolt-ons let me
Yeah.
massage the data first?
Right. Well, I mean, I know we have date fields, but that's more in your area.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked because that also gets to the same Power Query or get data side of things. I don't know what technically they call it inside of Power BI, that you can access it via the query editor. So when you're taking your data in, just like you were to mash your Marketo and CRM data, Power Query has a pretty rich formula language called M. It also has a powerful GUI to let you do most everything that normal users wanted to see in terms of transforming your data. You know, so long as that, you know, I've done some stuff with DB2 data where for whatever reason they use centuries as the end of the, so it'd be like 0101990 for 1990. And, you know, we were able to, fair enough, they made that choice. But, you know, as long as that's consistent, you can use the query editor to transform what you're pulling in. So if it's in a human readable format with dashes, with slashes, or if it's, you know, the Excel integer epoch format, you can load that all in, transform it so everything is, you know, 42687 or what have you, and combine that. And then you'd use a date table so that you can make everything line up.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot easier than my old programming days, right, where you have to cast it to a certain date format that you're expecting, right?
Yeah,
So
you cast it
I like
at
that.
one point, everything comes through and it's done.
Right.
And then if, you know, that's another way too where, you know, if you're an organization that has a fiscal calendar, you know, things start in July for whatever reason, well, you can load that in with your date table, and now, because you've tied everything out to a specific day, you tie it out to your date table where it actually has your fiscal calendar and say, oh, you're in H2, Q3, what have you, and you can organize there. And then there's a lot of built-in functions for like total year-to-dates, parallel periods if you want to do month-over-months, year-over-years. And then you can also make custom time intelligence functions as well when you're trying to do things over time. And if you don't need those, you just use your date table where compared to your analytics table to sum and show those trends.
There's a question back here.
Does this do subscriptions or alerts?
So
I think you can do alerts, right?
Yeah.
Because
Alerts
you've got
from the
that-
mobile side.
Yeah, exactly.
So like
So,
if Japan falls under 20 million or something, it'll send out
Yeah.
an alert to whoever
Yeah.
subscribed to it.
yeah, and you can have that tied, obviously, to the dashboard and report, I think, right?
So it's, most of the alerts right now are built into the phone. I've seen some indications there right now aren't exactly reports built into the service per se. You can manage your mobile alerts through the service. And to the question on subscriptions, it sort of comes down to the design paradigm of Power BI because it's not really a canned report source, or it's really for collaboration. So there's no true subscriptions. It's whenever you look at it, you will see the latest information. You could finagle something to be a subscription, but it really defeats the purpose of the tool.
I've got one question on a totally on-prem setup. You mentioned the Power BI embed. Can you tie that into your own web server? Because that's all coming from this cloud,
I
right?
don't know. I doubt it. I'm not sure. I can't say categorically which way. I would say it seems unlikely, given that it's using the Azure Power BI side entirely. But that's where there's the Power BI with it integrated to SSRS public preview that you could look at. And that's a technical preview that just got released a few weeks ago. So that might be a better approach than embedded.
So that's all right.
Yeah.
Unless he was willing to put the on-prem data somehow up into the service, right?
Yeah, it depends
Because
on how
then
on-prem things need to be.
Right, because then you could generate the embed code from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, still early.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Lots of good questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Thank you. John and Alex will be here for a couple more minutes if you do want to step up and ask an offline question. And again, our next event is going to be on December 5th. You can RSVP on meetup.com, and we always appreciate comments, tweets, photos, that kind of thing to help us out. So thanks for coming out. We'll wrap it up.